If you have ever stood in a suburban backyard under a string of Edison bulbs while your wife used the words ethical non-monogamy and growth agenda in the same sentence, then you already understand the way the air gets heavy, like the barbecue smoke learned how to judge you. It was the night of our cul-de-sac's summer kickoff, the one with Costco hot dogs and kids doing bicycle parades with streamers, and my wife Elise set down her plastic cup of rosé, straightened the polo she wore like armor, and said very calmly, "Approve my affair or I walk forever." I remember nodding like a cartoon bobblehead whose spring just snapped because the polite American reflex is to keep smiling when a tornado steps into your yard. The neighbors were 5 feet away debating if the homeowners association should allow solar panels. The dog was chewing a Nerf dart, and here came the plot twist of 1,000 Reddit stories, the kind that bounce from relationship stories to cheating stories to full-blown family drama in 3 screenshots. I wish I could tell you I said something wise, but I said what any catastrophically stunned husband in a family drama stories episode would say, "I am sorry, what?" Elise clarified that she had found a new version of love, a bigger love, the kind of love that lives outside outdated paperwork and suburban fantasies. She wanted permission to date a coworker, a man who, she explained, made her feel awake. I am not sure why awake required hotel receipts from 2 different states, but there we were. She promised I could keep the structure, meaning the mortgage, the lawn care, the soccer practice rotations. She would simply add romance that was not me. There is a moment after an ultimatum where the brain goes to the dark comedy channel, and I watched myself from the sky, the drone shot used by every YouTube channel with titles like Reddit Betrayal Diaries, Family Revenge, Betrayal Stories, even Cheating Wife Reddit. "You will not believe what happens next," the captions say. And I agreed. I did not believe what was happening now. The thing about American culture is we package decisions into tidy brands. She had a brand, liberation. I had a brand, stability. The kids had a brand, we like snacks. And right there, with a paper plate of macaroni salad softening in my palm, the plot split timelines. In one timeline, I collapsed, begged, agreed to anything to keep her. In another, I raged, shattered a folding chair, and invited the police to our party. But in the timeline we are in, I went quiet. I did the Midwestern dad nod that says, "Huh," and I acted like a man who needed to deliberate. I am not a saint. Inside, the word betrayal thrummed like a bass line. I thought of the relationship stories where the husband refuses to sign birth certificate and the cheating wife gives birth to mixed baby headlines that the algorithm serves like popcorn, not because those were my facts, but because modern life is a slot machine of other people's mistakes. And I made a theatrical choice. I took a breath, stared at the glowing string lights like a jury, and I told her I would consider it, that we should talk, that I wanted to understand her needs. In satire, this is called feeding rope. In revenge stories, this is called setup. And in cheating wife story folklore, this is where the audience yells at the screen, "Do not trust the coworker named Grant." None of us knew his name yet, but the trope was already humming. I scraped macaroni salad into the trash and decided to become the calmest man in America. Calm is disarming. Calm gives you time. Calm makes your opponent narrate their plan out loud. Later that night, after we staged our toothpaste routines like 2 actors in a wife-cheating short story, Elise said she hoped I could be evolved about this. I smiled with every tooth I own and said, "Of course." The smartest lies are not lies, they are postponements. You let the truth expand like a parachute, and then you land wherever you choose. This is not a morality play. This is a logistics play with feelings. This is the beginning of my own Reddit betrayal, except I did not post it there, not yet. I recorded it in my head, in the sunk cost ledger of a man who paid for dance recitals and still keeps the tiny shoes. I am a very ordinary American man in a very ordinary cul-de-sac, and yet I was about to turn our HOA into a stage. If that sounds dramatic, remember that this is America, land of community theaters, depositions, and promotional codes. We stage everything. We even stage our apologies. If you need a genre label, pick any. Family stories, infidelity stories, betrayal stories, family revenge. I did not choose the genre. The genre chose me. I chose the ending. Reverse the tape 10 days and you will see why I was so calm at the barbecue. I already knew. The ultimatum was Elise's attempt to rebrand what I had discovered. She thought she was debuting a progressive manifesto. I thought she was rolling out a product after the market had leaked the slides. The discovery happened in a way that only makes sense in cheating wife Reddit threads or in those relationship stories where the narrators swear they are not the villains, they are just unusually perceptive. Our garage camera had been installed for raccoons because the city trash schedule turned our cans into wildlife buffets. When I mounted it, I forgot to tell Elise in any meaningful way. I am not a schemer by nature, but sometimes laziness becomes prophecy. Weeks before the barbecue, my phone pinged at 2 a.m. The camera had spotted motion. I tapped the clip and heard the muffled giggle of a woman who sounded like my wife and the swish of a man's voice that sounded like, "Not me." I watched headlights creep away like a guilty snake. If this were one of those Reddit stories with all caps titles, the frame would freeze and the narrator would say, "I forgot to tell my wife about the hidden cameras I installed, so I decided to just watch." And then a million comments would debate the ethics of surveillance versus the ethics of vows. I did not post. I observed. There is a conspiracy theory flavor to grief. Your brain becomes the national security agency of a small town. Every receipt is a wiretap. Every calendar alert is a coded broadcast. I started stacking clues with a suburban spycraft that would embarrass an actual detective. Starbucks points ledger cross-referenced with maps. An Uber receipt to an upscale hotel 30 minutes away that she labeled Client Showcase. She does brand strategy for a tech company that sells wellness apps to people who already do yoga. The hotel had a rooftop bar with fire pits where you can take pictures that say promotion, even when the promotion is in somebody else's room. Grant appeared in fragments, first as a calendar block named Q3 Strategy, then as a voicemail where his voice said a casual, "Hey," that carried the overconfident music of a man who describes himself as an empath on his dating profile. At the school fundraiser, Elise introduced a man from her office with the face of a person who would explain bourbon to you unasked. He shook my hand, and for 1 second you could see in his eyes the unedited pilot episode where I was not supposed to exist. They always forget the husband sees. The universe likes to sprinkle satire in the tragedy. On the day I found a receipt for 2 room service breakfasts, the neighbor across the street hung a flag that read, "Live, Laugh, Love," in a font that only appears in romantic comedies and divorce depositions. I began to narrate my life like a parody of a true crime podcast. Welcome back to Suburban Secrets, where a man with a mortgage learns what awake really means. Today's episode features an HOA board, a minivan, and a limited series of bad choices. The conspiracy angle heated up inside my head. I imagined there was a secret Slack channel at Elise's company called Book Club where they coordinated personal growth opportunities. I pictured the HR manual printed in invisible ink, so only the word boundaries showed up under black light. I did not become violent. I became thorough. Americans love documentation. We keep receipts the way medieval scribes kept scrolls. I channeled my fury into a timeline, a clean, printable line of cause and effect. In the quiet, the internet kept doing what it does, feeding me betrayal stories like snack food. I saw titles like Cheating Wife Story, Wife Cheating Short Story, and those extreme spectacles where a husband refuses to sign birth certificate because the math is wrong and the baby does not look like him, and the comment section turns into a courtroom. None of that was my life, but the algorithm lessons were real. People lose not because they are wronged. They lose because they do not prepare. This is a country that treats relationships like startups. You need a data room and a go-to-market plan. So I built one. I downloaded phone records legally available to the account holder, which was me. I called a friend, Tina, who works in compliance. She told me what to document if a divorce turned contested. She also told me not to martyr myself. If she is asking for a license to hurt you, Tina said, your job is not to make her paperwork easier. Across town, Elise and Grant went to lunch at a place we used to call ours. I know this because Elise accidentally airdropped a photo to our family iPad, and the iPad, bless its simple rectangular soul, served it to our shared cloud. When I clicked it, I expected to find grief. What I found instead was a clarity that felt like revenge stories in slow motion. All the American cliches lined up in formation. The open plan office that pretends hierarchy does not exist. The mentorship coffee that turns into a sailboat. The plot was ordinary, which made it worse. Infidelity stories rarely involve diamonds and heists. Mostly they involve Panera and lies. And so by the time Elise stood beneath those backyard lights and announced a future in which I played chauffeur and she played free spirit, I had already decided to storyboard the ending myself. Not because I am smarter, because I was finally awake in the old-fashioned way. The thing about ultimatums is they are often written by amateurs. Real power does not announce itself. Real power hides inside clauses. I made an appointment with a lawyer named Doug who keeps baseball cards on his desk and a photo of his third dog, Murphy, who outlived 2 marriages and 1 ex-wife's resentment. Doug specializes in 2 things, commercial leasing and shaking his head at human decisions. I told him everything, even the part where I pretended to be open to Elise's new lifestyle. Doug drew a box on a legal pad. You do not need to win feelings, he said. You need to win the box. The box was custody, the house, the retirement accounts, the tuition fund, the car that did not smell like secrets. You cannot stop a person from choosing chaos, he said, but you can design the runway so their plane has to take off somewhere visible. And we worked through options with an American practicality that felt like building a deck. There were permits, there were codes, there were wood screws, and the knowledge that if you do it wrong, your guests will fall through the floor at Labor Day. I drafted something that looked almost like consent, but was actually disclosure. Elise wanted me to approve her affair. I said I would consider a written agreement so that our expectations were aligned. It contained a handful of requirements that would sound reasonable to a person who believes her love is righteous. Total transparency of devices and schedules on the premise of protecting the kids. A no-spend clause using marital funds on third parties. A statement that anything she did not disclose now could be considered material deception later. I included a cheerful cover note full of therapy words and called it the Affair Approval Agreement. In bad relationship stories, this is where the spouse refuses to read, signs, and later asks, "How could you?" In our story, Elise read, she said, "This feels controlling." I said, "Only if there is something you do not want me to know." She sent it to Grant, who fancied himself a strategist, and wrote back with edits so incompetent that Doug later framed them as a motivational poster. The parody wrote itself. He wanted a romance window each week, a phrase that should be illegal in several states. He objected to the no-spend clause because gas and snacks are human rights. He asked to remove the disclosure of hotel names for privacy, which is like asking a bank to remove the account numbers for whimsy. Doug and I kept the essentials. Elise signed. She signed because she wanted an unburdened future, and because people who feel chosen believe the rules will always melt for them. She signed because the satire gods demanded a prop for the third act reveal. I did not celebrate. I went quiet. I built a second box, a narrative box. It is not enough to be right. In America, you have to be understandable. You have to be the main character of a story people can retell at work without opening a grief portal under the Keurig. So, I rehearsed what I would say to my parents, to the HOA, to the neighbors who share ladders and secrets. I did not want the mob. I wanted the mirror. If I seemed like a man from Reddit Betrayal who planned a takedown, I would become the villain. If I seemed like a father guarding his children from chaos, I would become the anchor. Meanwhile, Elise bloomed into her second adolescence. She bought a hat. She laughed with a new frequency. She lying smiled when she texted, "Late meeting," the smile that looks like a window-reflecting night. I did not set traps. I turned on lights. I asked how the meeting went and waited for facts to betray her, which they did in slow, dumb loops. She said she was at the gym, but the car location said a wine bar whose name contained a punctuation mark. She said a women's circle, but the photos showed Grant's reflection in a window, the way a ghost might pose if a ghost lacked imagination. I took no joy. The calmness is not because I'm a vacuum. It is because I picked my ending. The conspiracy flavor returned, but this time it served me. I imagined an agency called Aegis Cul-de-sac, and its motto was, "We see you try." Its agents were lawn care guys and school secretaries, and the way the barista marks a cup with two names when there is only one person at the register. I built the reveal into a fundraiser we had for the kids' robotics club. Elise volunteered to run the raffle. Grant bought a book of tickets. People who cheat love community events because applause feels like absolution. We planned a slideshow, which in any respectable family stories, tradition should show baby photos and team photos and the stupid robot that launches marshmallows into ceiling fans. Mine would show those things. And then, with Doug's counsel and several pixels of righteous courage, mine would show the parts of the affair approval agreement that mattered to the box. Not the salacious parts, the parts where Elise had represented facts, the parts where her signature said, "I acknowledge X and Y and Z." Doug insisted I keep it clinical. He reminded me that in revenge stories, the winner does not gloat. The winner keeps custody and buys better Tupperware. The day before the fundraiser, Elise told me she was proud of my supportiveness. She kissed my cheek like we were in a toothpaste commercial where nothing tastes like anything. I do not know if she loved me in that moment. I know that I loved the kids and the house and the part of me that had stopped outsourcing my dignity. The satire in me thought about making a teaser trailer. The conspiracy theorist in me thought about black helicopters over the HOA meeting. The father in me checked the bake sale list and added brownies. Here is the reversal you came for, the one the thumbnails promise with their "you will not believe" words. Imagine a gymnasium with scuffed floors, an American flag bolted to the wall, and a gaggle of parents who have learned to clap at anything because hope itself needs noise. The kids launched their marshmallow robot and missed the target, and still we cheered, because this is a country where we manufacture optimism. My slideshow began normal, deliberately normal, pathologically normal. Baby photos, last Halloween, where our son dressed as a traffic cone and our daughter was a librarian armed with fines. Pictures of birthday candles and soccer trophies, and that Thanksgiving where Uncle Jeff tried to deep fry a turkey and almost deep fried the neighborhood. Then I changed slides and a document appeared. It did not say affair approval agreement in 30-foot letters. It said family safety disclosure and consent. It said acknowledgement of accurate representations concerning whereabouts and finances and child care continuity. It said certain simple things in black on white, and it said them in a font so bureaucratic it could have been carved in marble. I did not narrate the hurt. I narrated the facts. I said what the document was. I said the words Elise had signed, about maintaining truthful schedules, about not diverting family assets, about informing me if she planned to change the structure of the household. I said these clauses existed to protect the children and the home. Then I moved to a second slide that showed a calendar entry where a late meeting overlapped with a credit card charge at a hotel bar. I did not show faces. I did not show rooms. I did not show anything that turned the gym into a tabloid. I showed a gap where truth was supposed to be. I paused. In that slow courtroom way, I learned from years of watching Americans solve feelings with evidence. The gym went so quiet that even the flag seemed to worry. Elise stood beside the raffle bucket and held the microphone like a lighthouse that did not know where the rocks were. Grant, to his credit or to his instinct, stepped backwards, then sideways, then out a side door, as if his body had been training for this evacuation his entire life. I kept my voice at library volume. I said I could not approve a story that erased our vows and then asked me to pay for the erasing. I said I could not approve a story that asked me to teach our children that promises are costumes and the truth is a rehearsal. I said I could approve one thing, and that was her exit if she chose it. Doug would later tell me I had said exactly enough. Elise tried to speak. She said the words people say when their plan forgot about gravity. She said growth. She said authenticity. She said that I had trapped her with a contract, but the document was not a trap. It was a mirror. In America, we love mirrors that flatter us, and we sue the ones that do not. The parents did what communities do when their gossip becomes live theater. Some looked at their shoes, some looked at me. One mom squeezed my shoulder like hope had to be delivered physically. The raffle tickets rustled like snow. I did not wait for a vote. I announced that Elise and I would be separating and that the kids would be staying in the house they knew while the adults sorted their choices. I said the robotics club still needed a new battery pack and that I would match every donation up to a reasonable number my accountant had approved. Then I pivoted back to the marshmallow robot and asked the kids to take another shot at the target. They hit it. Someone made a joke about engineers fixing what emotions break, and we laughed, a whole gym sighing together, the way we do when a story threatens to leave a stain and we pray it only leaves a lesson. It was not cinematic revenge. It was better. It was administrative revenge, which is the only kind that lasts in a country run by paperwork. The next days moved with the weird tempo that follows explosions. Elise texted, then emailed, then arrived with a suitcase and a speech. I listened. I told her the lawyer would be in touch. I told her I wished she had wanted me to approve counseling before approval of an affair. She told me the new love made her feel alive. I told her our children did that for me every morning, which is a corny line, but also the truest thing I have ever said. The internet still fed me betrayal stories because the algorithm is a faithful dog that does not know when you are done. I saw thumbnails about husbands refusing to sign anything and cheating wife story sequels and wife cheating short story updates with 1,000 edits. I did not need them anymore. I moved from spectator to author. I pulled the cameras down from the garage because raccoons are easier than people. I did not publish my saga to Reddit Betrayal. I did not brand it Family Revenge. Even though revenge stories will smell it in the air, I did what Americans do when the show ends. I packed the props and took the kids for pancakes. The judge appreciated the boxes. Doug admired his own foresight like a man admiring a driveway he poured himself. The terms favored the calm. Custody was mine the majority of the time. The house stayed with the kids. Elise moved into a light-filled apartment where she could be as awakened as she liked. I am not a hero. Heroes fight dragons. I filed forms. But I will tell you what felt heroic. The morning after the hearing, I brewed coffee and opened the sliding door and let the dog sprint into the yard like a furry missile. The kids dragged their backpacks across the floor, invented a game about a robot that fires marshmallows at lies, and asked if I had seen their shoes. I had. I always do. There are 1,000 ways to end a cheating stories arc. I chose the one with dignity and a receipt. If you need the sensational closing line, here it is. My wife told me to approve her affair or lose her forever. I approved her exit instead, and I did it with such boring precision that even the drama got tired and went to sleep. That is not the kind of reveal that goes viral. It is the kind that gives you your life back. And if you have ever scrolled through Reddit betrayal diaries at 2 a.m, wondering how any of us survived these plots, you will understand why the quiet ending is the loudest victory there is.